Yo, peace. It's about 3 a.m. right now, so we're gonna get into how to go to hell. The reason I want to talk about this is the misconceptions of what hell is. See, when we think of hell, we think about, the devil, and it's a punishment for, sinning and doing bad deeds, karma, etc., etc., etc. However, hell just represents a mental dead state. It's not really somewhere you're sent. It just represents a mental dead state. It represents ignorance. So you can say it's hell on earth because most people are ignorant. And because most people are ignorant, or they're trying to exploit the people that are ignorant, this means that the information that comes through to us, the ones that's trying to learn, that's trying to gain knowledge, and that's trying to do something more spiritual, it tends to come off real watered down. It's tampered with. It's not pure. Because we at a point where people associate spiritual knowledge with just, getting more money. Getting more pussy. You get what I'm saying? Like, this is really what we have watered down spirituality to at this point, where everybody just gets into this shit just because they found out about manifestation and they just want more things, more material things. And it's that type of thinking that leads people nowhere because it's ignorance. Because if you can really create your reality and the only thing you're really concerned with is, I want to live overseas or whatever in this fucking mansion and, just kick my legs up and chill, we got the shit backwards. Because at the end of the day, if you're not able to navigate through the spiritual planes and the astral planes and be able to have full control over your mind when you are not in your body, because this is where all these things tend to happen, when you're asleep. If you don't have control over those worlds, this is how it's going to be when you die. You're not going to have control. And since most people don't have control when they die, they reincarnate or they go to a place that they don't want to be and they have to do this shit again. This all comes from a mental dead state, from not doing spiritual work. And by spiritual work, it's more than just eating healthy. It's more than just meditating and doing yoga and doing mantras and yantras and mudras. It's more than these things that most people talk about, because nobody is really talking about these things in depth. And what I mean by that is, people do a couple mantras, they realize it works and they go along with it, but they tend to forget, well, what is making these processes work? Why do mantras work? Why do yantras work? What is it that's giving these things light or the ability to move through space, through ether? How do these processes work? Nobody really talks about that. They just talk about, well, it does this, it does that, it does this. And it's like, okay, I understand what it does, but that doesn't give a person a full understanding of how and why it works and how it can be done in a spiritual context beyond just, manifesting mundane stuff. All that stuff is cool, but if that's all it's good for, then you better off just doing what everybody else is doing, because everybody else is after money. And if people just get into spirituality just trying to manifest more money and just doing, unnecessary shit, you might as well just do what everybody else does. When you talk about spiritual work, you are talking about alchemy. You are talking about transmuting your dead mental state into a more enlightened state. This has nothing to do with your finances. This has nothing to do with your family. This has nothing to do with anything else other than your mental state. When we get into spirituality, this is not a path to become financially free. See, everybody's painting this picture of, well, this is a path to financial freedom. It's not. This is a path to mental freedom. This does not mean you're going to be a millionaire. This does not mean that you're going to not have any problems in life. This just simply means that you are more aware of yourself. meaning you are aware of what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and what you're doing fully. So even if you're doing the dishes, you're fully in the moment while doing the dishes, while being fully aware of what you're thinking, while being fully aware of how you feel. See, most of our problems just come from not doing those three things. Because we're not doing those three things if we're worried about what somebody else is thinking and what somebody else is feeling and what somebody else is doing, which we, tend to do this all the time, then we wonder why these type of things make us feel fucked up. Because if you're so concerned about what other people are doing, you're going to question yourself. But when you just switch it back to yourself, because this is our reality, this is your experience. How you feel is how you feel, how you think is how you think, what you do is what you do. And everything in your reality reacts to what you're doing, not the opposite way. You're not supposed to react to what other people are doing, which is basically what you have a lot of shit going on now where it's just a lot. It's always a lot going on because this is just the job of the people that keep people stupid. I don't really want to call them no title because it really is no title. You can call them the government, the devil, the white man. You can call it whatever the fuck you want to call it. But at the end of the day, it serves its purpose, because if they were not in power, if they were not doing what they were doing, what do you think people would be doing? If we wasn't so heavily suppressed and oppressed, will we really have the will and the desire to be the greatest version of ourselves? If everybody would just, getting all the money they wanted, was just doing whatever, there would really be it wouldn't be no need for spiritual growth, in other words. So instead of fighting against the system, we should thank the system, because at the end of the day, this is what inspires us and motivates us to do things like this, to speak out on these things. Because if they didn't exist, it would be no point, and there would be no spiritual growth, because there would be no reason to spiritually grow. You get what I'm saying? So enough about that. Let's go into, why would you want to go to hell? What is the point? And again, we're not talking about a spiritual place in the astral plane or none of that. Not saying that place doesn't exist, but that's not what I'm talking about at this particular moment. What I'm talking about is, it's the same journey of the tarot. Because when you look at the tarot, the first card is the Fool, and the last card is the World or the Universe. So when you look at the journey from the Fool to the universe, it's just simply a journey from being ignorant to being spiritually conscious. And not just spiritually conscious of your body, but spiritually conscious of the whole universe simultaneously. This is the goal of the tarot. This is basically why you have a tarot deck, to assist you along in your path, your alchemical work. See, there's spiritual work, then there's alchemical work. That's why there's alchemists and there's spiritualists. An alchemist is more like an occultist. A spiritualist is more of a world peace type of person who don't want no problems. An alchemist will be willing to take those extra steps if needed, because the alchemists don't really deal with spiritual, or not spiritual, but religious undertones. See, if you're calling yourself spiritual but you have religious undertones, you're still religious. And what I mean by that is, if you're still basing your life on good, bad, right or wrong, God and the devil, all these things that we learn through religion, because religion teaches us that we don't come into this world knowing about good and evil and the devil and all these things. This comes from religion. So we're still approaching life from a religious context. Then we know that that's something that needs to be purified. We have to go to hell to purify our minds from this religious context of living. Because at the end of the day, if you go through your whole spiritual path and you still end up thinking about world peace or good, bad, right or wrong, if you still have these concepts still in your mind, you didn't really go anywhere. If we're talking about spiritual evolution, we're talking about changing how you think, not keeping the same way of thought the whole time you're alive. That's not spiritually growing. I don't give a fuck how much you meditate, how much you do yoga, how healthy your diet is. If you're still thinking with basic concepts, there is no spiritual. And this is the point of even being into this type of knowledge. Because if you're just doing this just to get a better diet and to eat more organically, cool, do your thing. But at the end of the day, if you're really trying to change your view of reality and actually have more access to your mind and your subconscious and actually influencing things in a spiritual manner to activate your higher awarenesses, it's going to take more than just eating healthy. Because this is why before motherfuckers started getting spiritual, they was eating fucked up. So obviously that fucked up eating led you to the spiritual path. It's not like you stopped eating fucked up food then became spiritual, because I know that wasn't the case for me. When I started to become more and more spiritual, I was still eating meat. I was still eating chicken and beef. I wasn't really eating the pork. I stopped eating pork at 14 or some shit. So I wasn't that heavy into it. But at the end of the day, I started to become spiritual before I gave a fuck about diet, before I gave a fuck about meditation and yoga and all these things. Before all of that even crossed my mind, my first introduction into spirituality was simply, I wanted to go to a particular state for a particular experience, which was Los Angeles. I was in Michigan at the time, Detroit. This is back in 2009 when I was 18 years old. I was about to go to Job Corps. I didn't want to do that. In my mind, I'm like, I would rather go to LA and, do my thing. Now, of course, this is just me at 18, just thinking like a child, not knowing better. But I took it seriously. And when I finally made my mind up that that's what I wanted to do, that's when the spiritual knowledge started to enter into me. This is when I started to just run into spiritual knowledge that I otherwise wouldn't have fucking ran into and all these things. But it first started with just that basic idea of this is what I want to do and I'm not taking no for an answer, and that's exactly what I did. Now, we can go through the whole process of how it happened and all these things, but that's not the point, because everybody's story and everybody's path is different. But at the end of the day, it wasn't about all these things that people talk about, because most people's introduction into spirituality was The Secret. I myself watched The Secret when it came out, but The Secret didn't really do much for me because personally it was too basic. So I'm like, okay, well, just, positive thoughts and everything happens. I'm like, all right, cool, but where is the actual spiritual work? I don't give a fuck about thinking about positive thoughts all day. I want to actually do some spiritual work. I want to actually get down and dirty and actually be able to touch some shit with my hands. I want to actually be able to see things happening. Not just thinking positive and fucking every time some bad shit happen, I think it's my own fault because I'm thinking negative. I love thinking negative thoughts. You get what I'm saying? I love thinking positive thoughts, if that's what you can call it. I love thinking about war and strategy and all these things. I love video games. I love violence. And by love, I don't mean obsessed with it. Just I enjoy it. I'm not that type of person. I'm just fucking sitting around in meditation where I like violence, destruction, death, chaos, gothic, medieval type shit. Because this is just who I am. This is why I talk about such dark things, because it just reflects who I am. So anyway, we're gonna keep it moving. I mean, it's not really something that I want to get too deep into. I just want to kind of go over some basic concepts, because shit, we already 14 minutes into the video and I've just been running my mouth. I ain't really got into anything, but it's not really just to get into anything. It's just to kind of break down some basic concepts so y'all will be able to understand where I'm going forward from this moment on. Because I don't really want to talk about the things that I've already talked about. I got 100 videos about spiritual shit. Now I want to go more into alchemy. I want to go into deeper concepts. I want to go into things that even spiritual people don't even talk about. This is why I do speak about certain things that other people would not speak about, because somebody has to represent the underworld. Somebody has to represent the dark side, because it ain't really the dark side. You get what I'm saying? It's not what everybody else paints it out to be. It's real. Like if you study any type of older religions, every goddess or god had multiple forms. I'm not gonna say every, but especially you can say in the Hindu tradition, you have the god Kali. She has multiple forms. She can take the form of a hoe. She can take the form of a priest. She can take the form of a fucking maid. She can take the form of whatever the fuck she want to take the form of. There is no particular form. Just as they say, God can come to you when you down and low in the streets or up in the fucking highest of the mansions. It does not matter. God doesn't fucking judge based on what your lifestyle is, just as long as you live it right. That's my only message. If you want to fucking be a drug dealer, a pimp, a hustler, whatever, just do the shit correctly so you don't get caught up in no bullshit. If that's your path, do it correctly. If you want to be a spiritual guru, or you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, you want to fucking have your own businesses, do this shit correctly. As long as you are doing this shit correctly, you don't have nothing to worry about. It's only when you start doing that stupid shit. And what I mean by stupid shit is you start thinking with your lower brains. You start fucking satisfying people who you shouldn't satisfy. You start to corrupt your soul. And all it really takes is purification. As long as you are purifying yourself every moon cycle, because that's really what the cycles are. The full moon represents cleansing. The new moon represents new things. As long as you are cleansing yourself around the new moons, not the new moons, the full moons, and during the new moons, you are, just preparing yourself for new things. You will be cool. This is why people have so much emphasis of the moon and, just astrology in general, because that's some of the things I want to talk about further, going into the future, astrology, numerology, just all type of alchemical shit, just to keep the ball rolling and to be different. And just push this shit wherever it want to go. So all in all, how to go to hell. Hell is just purifying religious undertones, religious thoughts to get beyond these things. We have to go beyond these basic concepts. We have to go deeper into the mysteries. The mystery schools are just really giving you a broader perspective of life as a whole. Just going through the journey from the full to the universe. From the lower self to the higher self, to merge the two worlds together, to become a spiritual being. Not that we are not spiritual beings, but become aware that we are spiritual beings. Because when you are aware that you are a spiritual being, you don't really feel so inclined to react to everything that goes on in the world. You're not so quick to react when bullshit happens. You get what I'm saying? You know how to be patient. You know how to pace yourself. You know how to analyze things and make a informative decision. So that's just what it is. You know what I mean? How to go to hell. You know what I mean? Be safe out there. Peace. Hold up.